welcome to the Back Porch Kitchen. If you're new here, my name is Lindsay. I am a stay-at-home mom to 4 kids. They range from 16 months all the way up to now 13 years old, so we have a teenager in the house. And this channel focuses on my day-to-day life, being a mom, being a wife, and also balancing all my chronic illnesses. I have done at least one video for this channel that is about the chronic illnesses that I have. So I hope that you'll take a look at that. I will link it down below, and also stay tuned for the future videos. So today I actually have a teleconference with some doctors in about 45 minutes, but I need to do some kind of mini pantry batch cooking. We're not really cooking, I'm prepping. So I figured I'd get on here and vlog. I already have makeup on, why not? So I'm going to be making some of my homemade granola. It's fast, it's easy, it's delicious. And then I'm also going to be making my biscuit mix. So I do homemade biscuits. I'll also link, I have a video for where I make some quick biscuits using my biscuit mix. So I'll put that together with you guys, chat a little bit, and also any of the recipes I use here, I'll put down in the description link below. So let's get started. I'm making a half a batch just because my granola recipe does make a good amount. So I'm making half a batch, which will fill about a quart jar. And I just use canning jars that I have, but use whatever you have on hand. So I have 2 cups of Old Fashioned Oats. Use what you have. I have, by the way, I have my recipe written down on my paper just because my brain sometimes spaces out and I need to have it written down, otherwise I won't remember anything. So 2 cups of Old Fashioned Oats. I have a half a cup of dark brown sugar. Use what you have. If you only have regular sugar, that's fine. You can definitely combine that with a little bit of molasses just to give that nice smoky flavor that brown sugar has. I have about a heaping quarter of a teaspoon of cinnamon in here, but season it to your preference. I want my granola to have some spice to it, but I don't want it to taste like pie, but there's nothing wrong with it if it does. I have about 1/8 of a heaping teaspoon of ground ginger in here. I have like a 1/16 of a teaspoon, so a dash of nutmeg, and also a dash of ground cloves. Use whatever you like in here. I also have about 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt. I use kosher salt, that's just what I have, but use sea salt, whatever you have. In a little bowl here, I have my dried fruit. So I happen to have about a quarter of a bag of dried pitted prunes. That's what I'm using. You can use craisins, use whatever dried fruit you want to. If you want to go a little tropical route, add some dried mango, some dried pineapple, and in your spices, you can play it up a bit. Maybe some ground cardamom. You can use some star anise or some Chinese 5-spice. This is just kind of the base. Do whatever you want and spice it up however you want. So I have about 1/3 of a cup of quartered pitted prunes. I have about a quarter of a cup of just chopped almonds. I just took whole almonds, cut them in half, called it a day. Use sliced almonds, use macadamia nuts. That would be really good if you're doing the tropical route and doing some dried mango. That would be delicious. And I also have about 1/8 of a cup of flaxseed. You can use chia seeds, use anything. This is just to make it, to be honest, to make me feel a little bit better about eating all the sugar and carbs. And it's good for you, so why not? So I'm just gonna dump those things in. Hands are clean, by the way. If you wonder where I'm putting, I have a sink over here with some hot soapy water. In this little thing, I have about a half a stick of melted butter and about a tablespoon of maple syrup. So I'm just gonna make sure my brown sugar and my spices are combined, and I'm gonna dump these in without breaking this bowl. This bowl is actually, it's not really an heirloom, but it has sentimental value. So my grandmother, who lives down in close to Wilmington, North Carolina, that is one of the original bowls from her, I think it was a Sunbeam stand mixer, more kind of horizontal than vertical, but that's one of the bowls, and she had gotten rid of the mixer, I think given it to my cousin, and she asked if I wanted the bowl, and of course I did. So it's in perfect condition, and I love it, and it means something to me. So every time I use it, I have a little piece of my grandma with me. just gonna toss this together. Again, it's a rough, and I rarely measure things, with the exception of baking. Baking is chemistry. And so if you change the moisture content, everything has kind of a domino effect. This is loosely baking. So if I want to add more, I actually just used all the pitted prunes I had. I wasn't gonna leave 3 in a bag. That's ridiculous to me. But this would just give some nice chewiness when you bake it, because they're really soft when you take them out of the bag, and they're sticky. They're almost like candy, really. This makes them chewy when you bake them. I like that in a granola. I usually put this on top of yogurt. Delicious. You could eat it like cereal. That's how good it is. I think this is pretty good fruit to bready carb ratio. I always err on the bready carb side though. It's my favorite. I have about 1/8 of a cup of cold water here. And so I'm going to pour that in. I'm also going to pour in the melted butter and maple syrup. Get all of that goodness out. And then you're just going to toss to combine. So before I started this, I did preheat my oven to 375, so 375 degrees Fahrenheit. And I have my rack in the middle of the oven. So if your oven runs a little bit hot, maybe take a little bit lower. I am cooking this on a dark cookie sheet, just because that was what was on top and I pulled out. And I do have a sill pat in there. You don't have to have one. It just makes it easier to come out. It's just easy. You can just wash it. So the trick to this is you don't want it too wet. You want all of the oats coated, but if it's too wet, you're basically going to create oatmeal. Nothing wrong with that, just not what we're going for. So I'm going to bring my dark pan over. It has a sill pad in, and I did spray it with a little bit of cooking spray, just non-stick spray, just to make sure it comes off easily since there is sugar in it. And once I am convinced that it is thoroughly mixed, I'm just going to dump it out. And I usually just dump it in a big pile and then spread it out with my spatula. By the way, this is a set of mixing bowls. I think this was from Williams and Sonoma. I've had this for probably 15 years. It's a set of nesting bowls. I use it all the time. It actually has some, I need a new one to be honest. Super handy and not expensive. You can look on Amazon. I'm sure you can find one like it. And this spatula, it's called a spoonula. It has, I don't know if you can see, it has kind of a curved shape. So it's perfect when doing something like this. I'm just going to use it to kind of mash it out. You want an even layer, just so it gets nice. I like mine crunchy. I like there to be some kind of crunchy clusters, but then also some finer pieces. But do it how you want it. If you want no clusters, just make sure you spread it out really well. But this isn't really an exact science. Again, this is semi-baking. You're cooking it up to get it done, but that's about it. So once I'm that, I'm just gonna use my finger, scoop off any excess. If I wasn't filming, I'd probably lick my finger. So take a towel just to wipe my finger off. So I'm gonna put this in, again, 375 Fahrenheit, center of the oven, 10 to 15 minutes. Just look at it. Since this is a darker pan, I'll probably check on it more. The darker your pan, usually the less time you cook it for. But that's just a general rule. So I'm gonna check on it. I'll probably go through about halfway and toss it because I want everything to get nice and crispy. So put this in 10 to 15 minutes, maybe less, maybe more. Again, semi-baking. All right, so while I'm doing this, I'm also going to do my biscuit mix. So let me get that stuff. A good thing is I don't really need a bowl because I'm making it into a plastic container that I just leave in my pantry that has my biscuit mix. So whenever I make biscuits, I just pull that out and all I have to do is add the fats and the liquid. So it's easy. Hold on one second. All right, so biscuit mix. It's just about empty. Have a little scoop in here. Get it out. So I have 2 thins of baking powder just because one is just about empty. Go ahead and open the new one. And I'm also going to get some all-purpose flour. And I have some regular sugar. So baking soda, baking powder. Let's clean up my trash. And get my big old containers of stuff. All right. So I keep these. This is from, it might be from Target. Easy to find. They're airtight. They're great. I've had them for years, probably 10 years. So in this, move my granola recipe out of the way. And the biscuit is one that I use fairly frequently, but again, my brain semi-works some of the time. So on my phone, I save my recipes. When I eventually get to typing them up, I save them on my Google Drive. So this is one that I have on my Google Drive. But again, I'll put the granola recipe and this recipe in the description box below. And I will link to the biscuit video that I did. But this is the first granola one. So this container I think can hold about 2 kind of batches. This, I think, we'll see. So first is all-purpose flour. So I don't have any labels on the actual containers. I know which ones they are because I put them in a certain order, but I also kind of bootlegged and just put AP in the lid. It's easy. You can see it from where the shelf. You can actually see under the lid. So you know AP. I also have one for bread flour. So I have a little handy dandy scoop in here, but we're not going to use it. Get on the excess flour off. So I have my measuring cups. For each batch, it's 2 1/4 cups of flour. So measuring cup, knife to level it off. When you're baking, you don't want to shake your cup. What it does is you don't get a true measure. It kind of compacts the flour in. So I'm going to kind of toss the flour a little bit just to get it aerated. Going with the knife, the flat side of the knife, obviously, not the scoop side. And we're just going to level off the cup. So 1. By the way, it wouldn't be the end of the day if you use bread flour. If you have self-rising flour, definitely use that. You just won't use your baking powder and baking soda. So it's 2 cups. And grab my 1/4 cup. So when I'm doing batch recipes like this, I don't double the ingredients as I go. So I wouldn't do 4 1/2 cups. Because it makes it easy for me to forget things, to leave items out. So I go do a whole batch first and then a second batch. Plus also, some recipes don't double well. They just don't. So it's better to be very precise with the recipe you have. This is a pretty easy recipe. I mean, it's not complicated. So it just makes it easier for me, and you're more likely to get a better result if you do the whole recipe first, make sure you're precise with your ingredients, and then just do it again. But do you. The judgment-free zone. So this will probably make 3. I'm not going to do 3. I don't want to. So we have 2 1/4 cups of flour in there. I also have another handy dandy scoop in my sugar. And so my biscuits, they're not sweet biscuits. You don't taste the sugar, it just adds a little bit of depth. So I'm going to put, I think it's 2 1/2 tablespoons of sugar. So do a tablespoon. This is actually, these are old school Tupperware measuring spoons. I'm pretty sure my mom had some of these. I got these off of Etsy. I love them. I use them all the time. I have a toddler. He plays with them. They're fantastic. So for sugar, I don't have a 1/2 tablespoon, but I just eyeball it. It's not the end of the world. So get my sugar. The sugar I will kind of shake a little bit, sprinkle over. There's 2. and a half, maybe a little for good measure. Again, not the end of the world. I don't care. It's not going to affect anything. And then we're going to do, I have my bowl of salt. I keep this on the countertop, never have any issues. So it's 1.5 teaspoons of salt. So 1.5. So this is the first one, baking powder. It's a tablespoon of baking powder. See, a little bit low here. So what I'll probably do, there's not really a tablespoon in there. If there is, I would have to really scrape for it. I'm not going to fight it. I'm just going to do a tablespoon out of the new one, and I'll add the old one in. Tablespoon, and then 1.5 teaspoons of, or I'm sorry, 3/4 of a teaspoon of baking soda. I have one that small, so again, we eyeball. I'm kind of the school of eyeballing. So, pick this up a little bit, get enough on my spoon here. You think it's gonna have extra rice? It's not enough extra that it would affect the taste. If I were to put too much, and then it would definitely affect the taste. So I'm going to grab one of my multitude of whisks. Lord have mercy. Whisks. I'm just gonna whisk this together. I do that just so it's nice, and I'm not trying to mix together 2 or 3 batches. I'm just doing a batch at a time. Makes things get more evenly distributed. All right, so wash, rinse, repeat. Use flour, and I do have a bag of flour, of new flour that I can empty into this. I'll do it on camera, we'll see. Typically when I'm putting new flour in, I make a complete mess. Don't know how it happens, it just does. So we just embrace it. I do it close to the sink. So again, I'm gonna go 2 1/4 cups. By the way, if you're making biscuits, you can 100% buy store-bought biscuits. Maybe I'm one of the few. I don't like Pillsbury biscuits that much. They have an artificial flavor to me, but that's just me. If I'm buying like store-bought frozen biscuits, I actually like the Great Value biscuits you can get in a bag. I think they taste as close to homemade as you can get. So I prefer those if I'm going to do store. And I always keep some on hand because if my husband needs a quick breakfast, he'll throw a couple of those in there along with some sausage and be good to go. So keep that separate. And then we're going to do 2.5 tablespoons of sugar. I also have some sugar, but it's a big bag of sugar. I think it's like a 10-pound bag of sugar. So I'll wait until that's a little bit more empty. So let's put this on, push it out of the way. I'll wait until I'm done with the flour stuff before I tidy that up. There's no point. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and do the salt. What did I say? 1.5 teaspoons of salt. If you have, again, I always use kosher salt, but if you have regular table salt, use that. Sea salt, use that. Use what you have. Here's the thing. I see a lot of recipes. I love recipe books. I have a lot of cookbooks, and my family makes fun of me because what I generally do is when I get them, I read them like a novel. I literally sit down, read them I used to. I can't do that anymore. But I would sit down and I'd read them from cover to cover, and I put them away. I would never touch them again. And that's because I don't really use recipes. Again, unless I'm baking. Then I need all the support I can muster. But a lot of recipes have call for things that at least I don't have in my cupboard. Maybe you do. Maybe you keep a lot of different things in your cupboard, but I keep things that we use on a regular basis. Now, if I want to try something out new, I will, but I try and use things that have what I already have. So I don't know that you'll see many recipes on here where you would have to have something that's maybe exotic. You probably won't. We eat a lot of like good old fashioned Southern cooking. I do like to make some Asian food. I do like to make some curries and things like that. But the vast majority of what we eat is good old fashioned Southern. Your grandma, your meemaw, whoever it is made it. Your mom made it maybe. So use what you have. Don't go get anything else if you don't need to. That's kind of my motto. So baking powder. Another tablespoon of baking powder. I should be able to combine these now. Again, I always do I say this, but if I were to be doing, if I'm emptying sugar, doing whatever, I usually do it over the container because a little bit of extra baking powder isn't going to hurt anything. All right, that's emptied. So, the baking powder is done. Y'all, it smells so good in here because of the granola. It smells delicious. It smells a little bit like Thanksgiving, which I live for. Okay, then we have 3/4 of a teaspoon of baking soda. So, this is a 1/2 teaspoon measure. Done with the baking soda, baking powder. We've done the flour, we've done the salt, we've done the sugar. So, I'm just going to whisk these together. See, this could easily this would probably hold 4 batches. So let's whisk this together. Just get it evenly. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. When I go through and I'm about to use the biscuit mix, I always take my scoop and I always make a mess. I take my scoop and I kind of stir it up a little bit. Just to make sure everything is still well incorporated. All right, that's biscuit mix done. So I'm going to come back when the granola comes out of the oven so you can see what it looks like. I'm also gonna, I'll probably show you when I stir it up just so you can see what I'm doing. But that'll be that. So I will talk to you guys in a second. While the granola is baking, it's done now. I went ahead, I like to tidy as I go, so I went ahead and put everything away, put my biscuit mix away. I should say, let you know that, so if you make that, if let's say you're just gonna watch this video and make the biscuits like you're gonna make them right now, I think they make about a dozen biscuits. Obviously, depending on how big you make them. They get a nice rise on them. So I would just say if you're going to go ahead and make it, I usually pat them out to about 1/2 inch thick, 1/4 ounce. Again, depends on how big you want them. Let me show you the biscuit cutter I use. So I have this biscuit cutter. It's a vintage one. It's the perfect size for my biscuits because since they do get nice and tall, these are nice, like hearty biscuits. These aren't little flat ones. They're nice and they're delicious and they're flaky. And I want one right now talking about them. But this is about the size I use. Use whatever one you want. That just gives you kind of a sense of if you use this size, you should get about, of a cutter, you should get about 12 out of them. So I'm going to see how much of a mess I can make. I'm going to empty this flour thing. This is a 5-pound bag of flour into my container. I just like to cut a corner off of it. And I usually put a grocery bag under my container because, sweet baby Jesus, do I make a mess when it comes to flour. We'll cover this roll back. Let's empty this. Some of the other things I batch, so cornbread. If I'm making cornbread, there's nothing wrong with Jiffy. I actually have some boxes of it in my pantry right now. If I'm just in a rush, just want some quick cornbread. The only mix I will buy at the store is Jiffy. If you don't like sweet cornbread, you don't want Jiffy. Also, you don't want my cornbread because I like sweet. My grandpa he didn't like sweet. He's passed away now, but he did not like sweet cornbread. I just never saw the point of not sweet cornbread. I mean, they're eating sand in a skillet to me. So I like sweet cornbread. I make mine with way too much butter and sugar and honey, and it's delicious. And you could eat it like a cake. And I might have that for my 9th birthday. It's just a pan full of cornbread because it's delicious. So shockingly, I was able to put this flour in there. There's a little bit left in the bag, so I'll put this in a Ziploc bag and just keep it. And I'll use it first before I use what's in here. I'm gonna have to wash those scissors off. All right, so I'm going to pull y'all down from here and show you the granola's done. I'm letting it cool. I cool it on the pan. You don't want to put it on the rack, it's granola's gonna fall through. So give me a second and I'll show you what it looks like. All right, so this is the finished granola. You're gonna let it cool. You see it get nice and brown, and that's from all the brown sugar, and it's also from the butter. So I just let it brown and gets nice. I've stirred it up some, so you're gonna get some good clusters. You're gonna get some little individual flakes. It's delicious. So anyways, hope you enjoy, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time here on the Back Porch Kitchen, y'all. Again, we post every Sunday. Try to have it up by 5, but we hope you enjoy. See you next time.